The Chicago Bulls are 2-0 in preseason play as they beat the Cleveland Cavaliers at home 119-112. We're going to be talking about the key takeaways from this game. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we are talking about the key takeaways from the win against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And so I always like to start with the theme of the night for the game. And so I just think that there's three takeaways from this. And so number one, once again, it was a slow start for the Chicago Bulls. I just felt like that the energy off the bench was able to help this team kind of turn some things around, much like what we saw in game one. Number two, the Bulls struggled with turnovers yet again. They had 7 turnovers in the first quarter, and so this is something that they're going to have to sharpen up. We'll talk about that a little bit more once we get into the team stats. And then lastly, there were players that were out. We had Vooch that was out due to rest. We had Kevin Huerter who was out with a groin. And then also, too, Julian Phillips was out with a knee. And so from what I understand, those injuries are not anything serious and just minor things there. And the rest for Vooch, not a big deal either. And so now let's go ahead. Let's jump into the box score and really start with the MVPs of the night for the Chicago Bulls. And so my first MVP on the night is going to be Ayo Dosunmu. I thought that Ayo Dosunmu came in just like he did in game one for the Chicago Bulls and really turned it on. And I think that this is a guy that is coming into this season and he is really on a mission. And so you see that he had the 16 points tonight. He was 3 of 3 from the free throw line, 6 of 14 from the field. So I love the fact that he was aggressive there. And then also, too, you see that he had the 4 rebounds, only an assist today, and did have the 3 turnovers. But once again, I just love the energy that we saw from Ayo Dosunmu. And I think that this is something that this team needs. And I think that, look, he continues to show just how valuable he is to this team off of the bench. And I think he's going to make it interesting for Billy Donovan as he tries to figure out what he wants to do at the small forward position, because we know Ayo Dosunmu would love to start for this team. And so, look, you got to start to think like, look, if he can bring that energy maybe in the starting lineup, this can help the team get off to just a faster start, which I think that it's always great if you can get off to a fast start. And so we'll see what happens as preseason goes along, and then Billy Donovan makes that final decision. But so far, Ayo Dosunmu just looking like a guy who is on a mission. So playing very well here in the first 2 preseason games. And so the next MVP on the night for me is going to be Tre Jones. And so Tre Jones absolutely just stacked the stat sheet tonight. And so he had 10 points. He was +4 in the plus minus box score. He had 4 steals, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 of 2 from downtown, and 4 of 5 from the field. And so once again, what I love about Tre Jones is just, one, I've said this before with his defense. I think that anytime that teams have gone against the Chicago Bulls, they are not trying to find Tre Jones in a mismatch. And I think that he's always held his own. And you get a chance to see that tonight with the active hands. I think that that's something that you're going to see throughout the season. And really, I think that what you saw with Tre Jones is why Billy Donovan loves Tre Jones with the team, because he's a guy that you can depend on. He just goes at a high basketball IQ. And I've said this too, that, this is why this team was able to feel comfortable moving off of Lonzo Ball. And so Tre Jones has a solid night tonight, showing you that he can start. He's already shown you that he can come off the bench. I think that he is in line for a great season. And much like Ayo Dosunmu, both of these players are on a mission. And so I said it last night too with this team. This team seems to be hungry. And I think that these two players are one of the reasons why you could just tell the identity of this team has changed and why they are coming out very hungry thus far. And so next, jumping into the box score and just looking at some more key takeaways from this. And so, I think another player that really stood out here for the starters and just starting there with Zac Collins. And so I liked what I saw with Zac Collins tonight. You see that he led the team in rebounds, and so that's a good thing there. So 13 points. He had the 8 rebounds. He had 2 assists. He had a steal. He also had 3 turnovers as well, but I like the fact that he shows you that he can float around on the perimeter and make some plays happen. And so 2 of 3 from downtown, 5 of 7 from the field. And so the Bulls had 3 buzzer beaters in this game, and he had one of those in the corner with a 3. And so nice to see Zac Collins really kind of show out. And I think that, he's really settling in very nicely here in year 2 with the Chicago Bulls. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at him just like Tre Jones is just really a very, very solid contributor here. And so curious to see if Billy Donovan is going to run out those double big lineups, because Zac Collins looking pretty good here in the first 2 preseason games. Next, continuing on with the starters here. And so Issac Okoro. And so Issac Okoro, 6 points today. You see that he had the 5 fouls and the 3 assists to go along with the 4 rebounds, 3 of 11 from the field and 0 of 4 from downtown in 25 minutes. And so, even though Issac Okoro did not play well on the offensive side of the ball, I think that I loved what I saw with his activity. And I just know that he is just helping this team as far as changing the identity of the team defensively. And, just on the offensive end, it's not always going to be perfect for Issac Okoro. And I think that he wouldn't shock me, or it wouldn't shock me, if he were a player that eventually he just turns it on towards the end of the season, much like what we saw with Josh Giddey. And so I think for him, just continuing to get comfortable in this offense, because I think he's going to have a lot more opportunities here with the Chicago Bulls than he did with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, will he capitalize on that? Let's see what happens with Issac Okoro. I think it comes down to him just continuing to work on his craft there on the offense and just really having the confidence here, because I think it's going to be there. But I do love the fact that he is just letting, he's letting it fly. And so I like that about Issac Okoro, even though it was a tough night offensively. And so next, with the starters here, looking at Modest Buzelis. And so with Modest Buzelis, look, I think that the takeaway tonight for him is just the confidence. And so I think that we are going to see a player that continues to show growth. He looks comfortable with putting the basketball on the floor. I like the fact that he got to the free throw line, was 3 of 4 there, -7 in the plus minus box score with those 11 points today. Would have liked to see him get some more rebounds. I did like the activity there today. 2 rebounds, 3 of 7 from the field, but still, I think that you see a Modest Buzelis that is very confident. And I just think that once the season gets here, we're going to see him take off. And so I'm betting on Modest Buzelis taking a step forward. So very good with what we saw from him tonight, even though it wasn't as efficient in game 1. And then lastly, the last starter here, Josh Giddey. And so with Josh Giddey, I think that he played a lot better tonight. You see with the 14 points, -4 in the plus minus box score, did have the 3 turnovers tonight, didn't have a block, didn't have a steal, did have 6 assists and the 7 rebounds, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, 2 of 5 from deep, 5 of 13 from the field. And he did have a buzzer beater into this one. But, I know it wasn't the greatest game for Josh Giddey, but once again, it is preseason. And I just think that this was kind of similar to what we saw from him last year. I think that he kind of got off to a slow start here. And so, I think that I'm impressed with the fact that we saw some more from Josh Giddey. Obviously, I think that you'll see a little bit more once you get Kobe White back there. I think that kind of adds, a different type of dynamic to the way that this offense operates. It's going to open up the spacing and everything else. And so, I think that was really my key takeaway here from Josh Giddey. I'm just glad to see that he took a little bit more of a step forward here. And then next, just kind of looking at some other performances here. And so want to go ahead and give credit here to Javon Carter. And so I thought that Javon Carter once again plays well off the bench tonight. I thought that he did a great job as far as helping to close down this game. So he had 14 points, +6 in the plus minus box score, 2 rebounds, 4 of 5 from deep, and 5 of 7 from the field. And just really appreciate Javon Carter as a professional, just always staying ready. And this was the moment for him to go out there and play. And he made it happen and just really helped this team secure the win once again here in the fourth quarter. Some other notables off the bench. And so starting with Patrick Williams. And so Patrick Williams didn't necessarily shoot the ball the best today. But what I do like about Patrick Williams is you see that he got 8 shots up. And so that tells me that this is a player that's coming in and being a little bit more aggressive. And so he was 3 of 8 tonight, 21 minutes. He was 1 of 4 from downtown, 1 of 2 from the free throw line. He had the 8 points and he finished in the plus minus box score with +8. So you always love that. 3 rebounds. He had an assist. He had a steal. And so I thought the activity was there. He did have the 2 turnovers. And so I like that from Patrick Williams. Jalen Smith had a nice little and one in this one. And so 8 points. He had 7 rebounds as well and the 4 assists. And so I like the fact that he is showing that he can pass the basketball too, as well as a big. You see that he was 3 of 6 from the field, so much better than he was in game 1, 0 of 2 from deep. And so that's what you want to see, with Jalen Smith, is just the activity. He did have 2 blocks as well. And so, in fact, he led the team there. And so that is a great sign. And I think that if he can show that he can be a shot blocker, he's certainly going to get some minutes because this team is going to need some shot blocking and they're going to need some interior play. And so Jalen Smith showing that today. Next, Dalen Terry +13 in the plus minus box score. You always love that. So 2 points. He had the 3 assists, the 2 rebounds, 0 of 5 from the field, 0 of 2 from deep, 2 of 4 from the free throw line. Once again, I like Dalen Terry and his activity. And then, lastly here, wanted to talk about Lachlan Olbrich. And so with Lachlan Olbrich, he got the 3rd buzzer beater on the night at the end of the game for the Chicago Bulls with a tip in. But I was saying just really in the preview to this one that I would like to see Lachlan Olbrich out there and see what he could do. And so I thought that he had some pretty nice finishes around the basket there. And so 6 points today, +2 in the plus minus box score, 2 rebounds today, 1 steal, 3 of 4 from the field in 7 minutes. Noah Singay, +9, 2 points, 2 assists, 2 of 4 from the free throw line in 17 minutes. So not as many points, but I think the good thing about this is that Lachlan Olbrich and Noah Singay both finish in the plus minus box score, or in the plus minus box score. So I love that. But more importantly, with Lachlan Olbrich, I like his approach out there. I think that, yes, he made some mistakes. I think he missed the box out or something like that, but still he continued to compete. And like I said before, if this team does do something in the front line where they make a trade or something like that, Lachlan Olbrich is going to have to step up here and perhaps maybe play some minutes. And so I like the fact that we did get a chance to see Lachlan Olbrich today. And so that's really the key takeaways out of the stats. Wanted to go ahead and jump into just now the team box score and take a look at that, because there were a couple takeaways out of that. Again, just really starting with the turnovers for the team. And so tonight, the Bulls led in turnovers once again, 21-17. And so they cut down the turnovers a little bit from game 1, but still, you don't want to be into those 21 turnovers or 21 plus, I should say, because Billy Donovan has talked about this before with just maximizing the possessions. You're giving those possessions away. You're giving, these teams chances to score and things like that. And then next, points in the paint. I think that was something that I was impressed with the Bulls tonight, 58-36. And so I think that if the Bulls can carry that into the season, that's something that will certainly help them. Anytime you're talking about points in the paint, you're not just sitting there and just shooting the 3 ball. And speaking of the 3 ball, it didn't necessarily go down for the Bulls tonight. 33.3% from the field, or excuse me, not from the field, but from the 3-point line is something that they have to get a lot better at, especially for a team that wants to shoot those. And so, you would like to see that, but it just didn't fall tonight. The Cavs, not that much better at 39%. And then I think the next key takeaway here out of the team stats was just the fouls. And so you can see it right now. Both teams went to the line 32 times. And so you just see how many fouls there were. The Bulls 19 of 32 from the free throw line. You see that the Cavs were 22 of 32. And so just a lot of fouls tonight. And so I think that that's another key takeaway here out of the box score. And then just lastly, again, with the Bulls, man, I just thought that once again, just the way that they were able to claw and fight back and get back into this one. I like the fact that they were playing some team basketball. You see that with the assist category, they lead there 32-26. And so we always want to see those assists for the Chicago Bulls, especially with the type of playing style that they play. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here, what are your key takeaways from tonight's game? Like I said, it's good to get a win. It's good to see that the Bulls are 2-0. And I think that, yes, even though it's preseason, you still want to, get those winning habits. You want to, obviously correct some things and stuff like that. But, I do think that this is something that does help your team, once you get to the season. And so I know we're going to get everybody's, best once we get to the season and everything else. You're not going to see, starters sit and stuff like that in the fourth quarter. But I just think that you want to set those principles out there. And it's all about the foundation for this team. It's all about getting to their identity. It is all about tapping into really, I think, that hunger that I am seeing with this group out here. And so I'm not sure how this team is going to finish, but I do think that they are going to be better than they have been in the last 3 seasons. And I do think that if there is a time where this team could actually get out of the play-in, I think it is going to be this season, just the way that this team is competing and showing the resilience like that. And so I do know that everybody is going to get better. And so let's see what happens as the Chicago Bulls have their next game on Sunday. And so we'll be talking about that. You guys let me know in the comments here what your key takeaways was or takeaways were from this game here. And so look, as we always say, go Bulls. And I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.